Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to tell you a story. Not from a Vietnamese village, but from the far end of Africa, where there lived a black man with white curls, a gentle smile, and a name the whole world knows, Nelson Mandela. But today, I will not tell his story as that of a historical giant, or a president, or a great freedom fighter. I will tell it as the story of a human being learning to walk through pain, guided by the Buddhist teaching. Pain is a lesson, not a punishment. When Mandela was a child, he was not yet called Nelson. His birth name was Rolihlahla, a Xhosa word meaning the troublemaker. From very early on, he was already different. In his rural village of Transkei, most children played soccer, climbed trees, or chased goats. But little Rolihlahla often sat by the fire at night, staring at his father and asking, "Father, why do white people have such big houses while people like us live in mud huts?" His father, a village chief, sighed, "Because they have power, my son." Then, "Why do they have power and we do not?" The father remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Sometimes even I do not know. But I do know this. If we do not learn, if we do not understand, we will always live with our heads bowed." And in that little boy's heart, a question took root. Why do some stand above while others are crushed below? And can this ever change? As he grew older, Mandela was sent to school. There, a white teacher gave him a new name, Nelson, because Rolihlahla is too hard to pronounce. It was his first small wound, tiny but deep enough to leave a mark. His name, the language of his ancestors, was brushed aside because it was inconvenient. At school, he noticed strange things: separate desks for white children and black children, toilets marked Europeans only, streets and neighborhoods where black people were not allowed to walk. One day, Mandela's close friend Themba slammed his fist on the table. Why? Why do they get everything while we are nothing? Mandela sat quietly, then said, "Because their laws allow them to. Then we must break those laws," Themba growled. Mandela looked out the window, where an old tree stood, its roots deep in the earth. "Breaking a law is like chopping a tree," he said. "If you don't know how to cut it, the tree might fall, but the entire forest may collapse with it." Those words, Mandela would repeat to himself many times in later years. Mandela became a lawyer. He began helping black families beaten by police, evicted from their homes, abused without reason. One day, a woman held her bruised child in her arms, crying, "Mr. Mandela," she sobbed, "why can they beat my child just because he stepped on the white people's sidewalk? We did nothing wrong." Mandela clenched his fists. "I will bring this case to court," he said. But he knew every court was governed by white judges. The more he fought, the more he was watched, threatened, hunted. His friends warned him, "Nelson, be careful. People like you always end up in prison." Mandela smiled. "If I fear prison, who will speak for those who cannot speak?" Yet behind that brave smile lay growing pain. Pain from watching his people humiliated. Pain from knowing he might lose his freedom, his family. Top pain from looking at his wife and children and asking himself at night, is this path unfair to them? And then it happened. Mandela was arrested. In the famous Rivonia trial of 1964, he stood before the judge, accused of treason, inciting violence, attempting to overthrow the state. The judge asked coldly, "Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Mandela looked around and declared, "I have fought all my life against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic society, where all people live together in harmony. It is an ideal I hope to live for. And if need be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The gavel struck. Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment, sent to Robben Island, a cold, windswept prison off the coast. That first night, Mandela lay on a thin mat. His back hurt, his legs hurt, his heart hurt. He heard the waves crashing against the rocks, like the sound of his world breaking apart. In the dark, a voice inside whispered, "See, Nelson, this is the price you pay. This is the punishment for daring to rise up." He pressed his forehead to the wall. Have I made a mistake? Months later, during forced labor under the burning sun, Mandela met an elderly prisoner named Abdul, thin, frail, but with extraordinary clarity in his eyes. During a rest break, Abdul said, "You're still young, but your eyes are full of fire." "Fire of anger," Mandela replied. "Angry at whom?" "At them," Mandela hissed. "At the government, at apartheid, at fate itself." Abdul stared at the ocean and asked softly, "So tell me, Have you ever been angry at your own pain? Mandela frowned. What do you mean? You see pain as a sentence, a punishment. So you fight it. You resist not only injustice outside, but also the reality inside your own heart. Mandela fell silent. I once read a teaching of the Buddha, Abdul continued. Pain is a lesson, not a punishment. A lesson? Mandela scoffed. This lesson has cost me my freedom, my family, my life. What kind of lesson is that? Abdul did not argue. He simply asked, when you leave this place with all this pain, what kind of leader do you want to be? A leader who only knows how to avenge, or a leader who understands both the suffering of his people and the fear of those who oppress them? Mandela had no answer. Pain is like a hoe, Abdul said. One person uses it to destroy. Another uses it to cultivate a garden. The hoe is not to blame. The hand that holds it decides. Then he looked straight into Mandela's eyes. This pain is not here to punish you. It is teaching you something no book can. Will you learn, or will you sit here cursing it? That night, Mandela lay awake again, but this time he did not ask, why is this pain punishing me? He whispered, if this is a lesson, what does it want me to become? The years passed. Robben Island did not grow kinder. Prisoners crushed stone under blazing sun, hunger, cold, insults, reduced to numbers instead of names. But Mandela began seeing things differently. In a young guard's eyes, he saw fear, the same fear prisoners had. In Abdul, though ill and weak, he saw serenity. In himself, he saw anger slowly tiring. One day, a young guard accidentally spilled Mandela's water. Trembling, he said, I didn't mean to. Mandela asked, do you have a family? A wife and a little boy. You must want him to grow up in a country without hatred, yes? The guard froze. He had expected rage, insults, threats, not this. Mandela said gently, don't fear me. Your fear is its own prison. Soon, prisoners whispered, that Mandela, he's strange, locked up like us, but he doesn't look defeated. His eyes are gentle but unbreakable. One prisoner asked Mandela, you don't hate them? Mandela answered, I hated them half my life. That hate gave me strength to stand up. But if I carry it forever, it will kill me. I will not leave this prison with free hands and a chained heart. One day, the chief warden approached Mandela. He asked quietly, is it true? You can teach, if you allow it, Mandela smiled. And so at night after labor, a classroom was formed, inside prison walls. Mandela taught reading, writing, law, history, freedom. One young inmate asked, why don't you teach us how to rise up and kill them? Mandela shook his head. If our pain only creates more pain, then what have we learned from it? But they deserve punishment. Mandela looked through the bars at the dark sky. Punishment may make people fear, but only understanding makes people change. The inmate muttered, but white people will never understand us. Mandela said, yesterday I saw the chief guard standing alone by the animal pen, staring at a bird with a broken wing. Even he has a soft place in his heart. If our pain helps us see that soft place, then our pain is not useless. After 27 years, in 1990, the prison gates opened. The world had changed. Apartheid was crumbling. Mandela's name had become a symbol of freedom. As he walked out, millions cheered. A reporter shouted, do you see your 27 years in jail as unjust punishment? Mandela replied, if I walk out of this prison with bitterness still in my heart, then though my body is free, my spirit will still be imprisoned. I do not want that. Few know that the night before leaving prison, Mandela sat alone and whispered the words Abdul once taught him. Pain is a lesson, not a punishment. Have I learned it yet? He wondered. He knew the lesson was not over. Mandela became the first president of a democratic South Africa. During the inauguration, people whispered, now he will take revenge. Now the white rulers will suffer. Mandela said nothing, but in the front row of honored guests sat his former prison guards. Reporters gasped, aren't you afraid your people will be angry? Mandela answered softly, if I use my pain as a reason to cause more suffering, then I am no different from those who used power to hurt my people. But they hurt you. Yes, and because I know how heavy pain is, I will not place more of it on anyone else. He founded the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where former oppressors confessed and were forgiven, instead of being executed or imprisoned. A foreign reporter asked, do you ever feel weak for not punishing them? Mandela smiled. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is how I tell my pain. I have learned you. You no longer define me. In his old age, weakened by illness, Mandela still smiled. In one meeting with youth, Someone asked, "If you could choose again, would you choose the same painful path?" Mandela paused a long time. "No one wants suffering," he said, "but I know this. Had I not gone through that pain, I would never have understood freedom, humanity, or myself." The young man asked, "What is the greatest truth pain taught you?" Mandela's eyes gleamed softly. "That pain does not come to punish us. It comes to ask us a question. Who do you wish to become now?" He spoke to the young crowd. "You can use pain to build a new prison inside yourself, or you can use it to build a bridge." "A bridge to what?" someone asked. "A bridge to yourself. A bridge to others. A bridge to a world with less hatred." Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Mandela is not merely the story of a nation, not merely of a leader, but of anyone who has ever suffered, ever lost, ever felt broken. Mandela was like a lamp guiding us through our own darkness. It is the story of a man who learned to look at pain differently. Had he viewed 27 years of prison as punishment, he would have emerged bitter, vengeful, shattered. But he chose to see it as a lesson, and he emerged with compassion, understanding, and the power to heal a broken nation. The Buddha taught, pain is a lesson, not a punishment. If we see pain as a whip from the heavens, we ask only, why me? But if we pause, breathe, and ask, what is this pain trying to teach me? Even before we know the answer, a small window opens for light to enter. Tonight, if your heart is heavy with a broken love, the loss of someone dear, a failure, a wound too hard to speak about, please do not rush to believe it is karma or punishment or something you deserve. Try whispering, maybe this is not a punishment. This is a very difficult lesson that life is patiently teaching me. And like Mandela, one day you may look back at your pain, not with resentment, but with quiet gratitude. Because I walked through that, I learned how gentle, deep, and free I could become.